From Adam's house and Gina's house and Brian's house, this is the Adam Carolla Show. Adam's guest today, Larry the Cable Guy. With Gina Grad on news, Bald Brian on sound effects, iHeart Media correspondent Steve Gregory drops by, and Dave Damashek is here for good sports. And now, earlier today, Natalia shouted at him, "Val, stay home." Adam Carolla.
That's why you have to listen to all the shows. Yeah, get it on. Got to get on the shows. Get on, get it on. And thanks for tuning in and sharing during these very interesting times. Good day, Gina Grad.
Good day to you.
And Bald Brian.
Don't care.
You know, it's funny. I'm looking forward to talking to Steve Gregory from the KFI News, because I've been asking for a long time, well, what about ages and what about information and what about stuff and why aren't we getting this? Are we missing? And is it a nefarious plan, or are they not being able to get the ages of people and other information? Well, he's a bona fide news guy, works with Gina over at KFI out here in Los Angeles, and we'll get him on the phone. Now, one of my favorite...
I have a feeling you'll find the answers very satisfying. He definitely has answers.
I'm looking for that. The part that I'm not finding satisfying is we keep saying Steve... Now, so he doesn't go by Steven, he goes by Steve.
Steve.
Right, which is what is one of his big cult is when he leaves.
His lockout.
His lockout. Is that called a lockout?
Yep.
Yeah, it is.
Steve
awesome.
Gregory, KFI News.
Right. But he never says Stephen Gregory.
No.
So we keep calling him Stephen Gregory over here, but I'm going with Steve Gregory because that's what he says, and that's his lockout. I don't have his thing in my pile, but we'll see if we can get that to Sonny and correct that. It's a little catch as catch can here, which is we email stuff to Sonny. Sonny prints it out, and then Sonny brings it to me. But I don't have Steve's bio, but Gina knows enough.
I know enough. Also, just to highlight, just because I know you don't have it in front of you, he has crazy stories. He's the one that will go out completely by himself in a flak jacket. You know, he's done stuff with, for drug cartel stories on the border. He's been attacked at protests in St. Louis. He's really he's out there.
Well, I want to talk to him about all of it and many questions about how the news and the reporting works. Sure. First, I will tell you that I was just talking to Dr. Drew, who's
in hiding.
He's in hiding.
Cowering.
You know, a lot of guys are in semi-seclusion. He's in full seclusion. You don't hear about the full, but he's full seclusion. And he was saying to me, what's going on with people and their ability to misread intent? And I thought to myself, this is a subject I'm very interested in. And then I said to him, I will give you two extreme examples in my reaction as it pertains to intent. I went in the shop while we're on the break, and there was a lone coffee mug sitting 4 inches from the sink. It was the one that said Dad on it. I should send Max Zapata I tweeted the pictures out there. It said Dad on it, ironically. It was about 4 inches from the sink, and at the bottom of it was some spot welded coffee stains that could not. And by the way, the thing is so deep that good luck getting your hand down there and cleaning it off. But I thought, 11 years of begging people to rinse their coffee mugs, and it has not worked at all. And
so far.
I was so far. The jury's still out. I was rip shit pissed. I could not fucking believe that the people I employ cannot execute the simplest of, I don't know what to call it, decrees, pronouncements. I'm now down to begging, but they can't do it or they won't do it. And I was like, fuck, I'm so fucking wildly upset over our inability 11 years in to rinse a coffee mug. Now, the number one answer, which always gets me even more angry, is when I say to Chris Max Pata, hey, what about that coffee mug? And then he goes, it's not my coffee mug. Mm-hmm. And I go, I understand, but you walk past it 9 times.
I never do that.
You always do it. That's all you did. That's all you do. That's all anyone in that place does. It goes, I'm not. Oh, well, it took 3 years to beat that out of them, which is throw it in the sink. Throw it in the sink and put water in it. No, number one answer, that's not my coffee mug. That's the number one answer. At some point, I then decree that you can put it underwater anyway. But
What?
that's where we're at. Now, I am so upset over this, I cannot put it into words. But the day I came home and my assistant Jay had mangled my Lamborghini Miura, I was not upset one iota. Why?
Because
Well,
you didn't mean to.
that's right. Intent. One is this guy made a mistake that he wishes never happened. The other is I can't get people whose salaries I pay to put water in a mug. Okay. So it's all about intent. It's not about the result. It's about the intent. So Drew is sitting around and he's wrestling with the notion of I am a good person. I'm a doctor. I've dedicated myself to people. He does so much pro bono work and blah, blah, blah. Why can't people understand what I'm trying to do? Even if the result was negative, why don't they understand that why kill a person who was trying to do something and was misguided or misinformed or misled or made bad decisions versus somebody who's actually a bad person? Why do we need to put that person's head on a pike?
Yes.
They're trying to do something and they screwed up.
Those distinctions should be made.
Those distinctions should be made. And then it led me into a thought, which is there's a lot of cross-pollination here, which is I was talking to someone yesterday and they said to me, you give out a lot of unsolicited advice, don't you? And I said, I do. And they said, why? And I said, well, I've been talking about how to paint for ever since I learned how to paint. One of the first jobs I had was painting commercial interiors of commercial office buildings with a guy named Andy, who was a Jehovah's Witness. And one of the first things I'd learned, because I'd been seeing commercials my entire life and experimenting my entire life with this, is paint trays are never used by professional painters. Anyone who knows how to paint at any level never uses the paint tray. You see them in the Home Depot commercials. You see them in the sitcoms when they're painting the nursery. They have the paint tray. But think about the paint tray. The paint tray is a tray. It's about 3 inches deep on the deep side. You have to put a quart of paint in it, not too much, because when you take the roller and you roll it, you'll push the paint out the other side. And anyone who's ever tried to move a paint tray, you're on a teetering ship and you're on roller skates. Like it slops around. It's really hard
Cumbersome,
to transport it without spilling the paint and so on and so forth. The very first thing I learned, use a 5-gallon bucket, put a screen, hang a screen in a bucket. They have paint screens. You hang it in the bucket. Then you get the roller and you go, well, I'm 6'2". I can do the roller. I can roll all the way up and down the wall. No, you're bending all the way down to the ground and you're getting up on your tiptoes. Get a 6-foot extension. Get a 6-foot extension, put it in the roller, put the roller in the bucket, put 2 gallons of paint in the bucket, put it in, pull it out, roll it on the screen, then roll it on the wall from a distance. It's much easier on your back to go all the way up and all the way down. And then when you store it, put a little slosh of water in the bucket with the paint. It's water soluble now. Put some saran wrap over it and just leave the whole thing in the bucket, walk away. Tomorrow you can pick up where you left off. It's so much better than the paint tray. And so I told this person, if I was walking through like a mini mall and I saw somebody painting with a tray in their business, they're opening a nail salon or something, I would poke my head in and go, hey, you should use a bucket. And I said, that's what I do. That's what I've been doing my whole life. And that's what I've been receiving my whole life. The only reason I know how to paint with a bucket is because some Jehovah's Witness named Andy said, hey, don't use the tray, use the bucket. And I went, bingo, that makes sense to me. And then I thought, whether it was playing football or whether it was painting or whether it was swinging a hammer or whatever it was always somebody telling you. I'd never read a book on construction painting was a guy named Rick who was 11 years older than me, and he was going to show me how to do a coping joint and why my 90-degree joint on the baseboard was okay, but his coping joint was better, and I should do it that way. And then he proceeded to show me what a coping joint was and how you get a coping saw out and do it. And I thought to myself, thank you, Rick. Thanks for taking time. Thanks for making me a better carpenter.
Yeah. To your point, just to kind of broaden it a little bit, working in a newsroom and something that I specifically have never done before, Steve or somebody will say, ooh, I have a suggestion. Do this, don't do this. And I'll say, great, thanks. And that's definitely something it has been crystallized through this job. Instead of, well, but I was doing it this way because nobody cares. They're giving you a piece of advice, take it. And somebody said to me, you're really good at taking advice and taking criticism. And I said, because when I hear your suggestion, I don't hear criticism. I hear, here's a way to keep your job. Would you like a hint?
Or to make your life easier.
It's a huge plus for somebody to bestow that gift on me, how to keep my job.
Yeah. Oh, look, they're stopping and taking time. I mean, I don't know. Do you give tips or share knowledge with hobos? And the answer is no. You do it with your kids, you do it with your friends, you do it with people you care about. So why then do half the people you care about look at it as a full frontal assault? So I then went from football, that's just a bunch of guys telling you what to do, technique, what you're doing wrong and how you need to fix it, which I always took as concern. Like, hey, these coaches in Pop Warner, these old guys with their beards and windbreakers, they're volunteering. They're not even getting paid. They must care, was the way I looked at it. Then you get out of that and you get into carpentry. Carpentry, you walk on a construction site, you know nothing about carpentry and eventually become a journeyman carpenter because you listen to Tom Johnson, who was telling you how to do laminate from his shop in Chatsworth. And I appreciated that Tom was doing that. Yeah. Also, we're going to get him on we're going to get Tom on soon. This guy worked closely
on Adam History Month.
That's right. So Max Pat, I think, has found a connection to Tom, but he'll share some stories. And then later on, I'm on the stage at the Groundlings, and Cynthia Seghetti's sitting in the middle of the bleachers holding court. And she goes, make an entrance. And then I make an entrance with my hands in my pocket, and she yells, stop. What did you bring to the party? You don't walk in empty-handed. You got something in your hands. You got some work, some space work. What are you doing? And I go, oh, okay. And then I re-enter, and now I'm holding a salad bowl in my mind, and I go, hey, what are you doing? And she yells, stop. No questions. You know what he's doing. Go out, come back again. And I don't go, hey, lady, you're not the boss of me. I go, she's being pretty short and curt and tough, but I think she wants me to get better at improv. And that's the way I shall absorb it.
And the construct is you're paying her to give you the advice. Like, you'd be a fool, so many people are, to not take that advice.
Well,
you're paying for it.
Most of this transcends all logic. But what I'm saying is Drew's subject of intent and or unsolicited advice. What is the intent of unsolicited advice? And I think a lot of people do, because you think you're smarter than me. And it's like,
they take it as a referendum on their abilities as a human being or something.
Which, here's the whole thing. I don't know how insecure you must be to take a look at every tie this sheep shank knot this way, or use a 5-gallon bucket to put paint, or, hey, when you're cooking, use olive oil instead of margarine. It's healthier. Whatever. Why is everything a referendum on your parenting or your ability or your
relationship? Like you're somehow above me or something. It's
yes. Let's stop that. And you're allowed to critique Dr. Drew for being wrong in his estimates as it pertains to the virus, but I don't think you're allowed to ascribe evil, nefarious motivations to what he was doing. Let's please stop it there. It doesn't make sense.
Or undermine his credentials as a doctor. Oh, he's just a quack. Is he even a real doctor? Yes, he's a real doctor.
He's the love doctor.
That's right.
All right. Steve Gregory, KFI is on. I'm so in love. What do we call it? It's not an outro. It's
The
a
lockout.
lockout. Is Steve Gregory there from KFI? Sorry, Max Petta.
No.
All right, we'll get him pumped up. He'll give us all the official particulars on what's going on in this crazy, crazy land we're living in.
There he is.
Steve? Oh, I don't see him
He's
now.
getting set up. There we go.
He came on and he popped off. Colleague now. Hi, Steve.
Adam, how are you, sir?
I'm well. I'm a fan of your work.
Well, that's very kind of you. Same to you.
Are you at KFI as we speak?
Yes, I just got off the the county's latest updates and figures and numbers and stuff, so I've been monitoring that.
Well, where are we at in LA County so far?
Well, LA County, number of deaths, sadly, up to 169. Looks like right now in the county, we have 6,910 positive cases.
Okay.
And for the first time today, we got ethnicity breakdown.
Oh.
It's very,
good,
it's very interesting.
I'm looking to blame Pacific Islander, Indonesian specifically, but go ahead.
No, they were able to provide information for 93 of those who have passed away thus far, because the information is coming in from various sources. They're coming in from different labs, and I've just found out that the private labs are not taking any kind of ethnic information, so it's very hard to get a complete picture. But of the 93 deaths that they do have information for, 19% of them are Asian, 17% African American, 28% Latinx, 27% white, and 9% as classified as other ethnicity.
That's my goal. My goal is to get to other. I now
We're all headed there.
I have an X on my license when it wants to know if I'm male or female, so I'm kind of other in that group. But if I could get to the ethnicity as being other, I think I could run the table on this. So Steve,
That's disproportionately Hispanic, by the way. 28%. That's
well.
way
Here's
higher
the.
than
It is. Don't be fooled by that, because based on the population breakdown of ethnicity, actually the deaths are higher in the African American community.
Yeah, they're always way ahead.
Interesting.
Because what it is you go, wait, you go 42 or 27% Hispanic, 21% African American, but you realize LA's half Hispanic and 11% African American, and that's where the rub is. Mm-hmm. So I was complaining, lamenting, and shouting foul at not getting any ages of the deceased people. I kept getting this over 60 or over 65. And to me, while this isn't pertinent normally, in this particular case, this is really pertinent information, because I was getting over 60. Now, Dr. Drew is over 60 and Mark Garagos are over 60, and they're good, dear friends. And I talk to them on a daily basis. And it's scary to think that Mark Garagos is in danger. Both my parents are in their deep 80s, and I have no real regard for their safety. So it's a completely different story. I could lose a non-family member who I cherish versus some leech. She was 88 and a half and wanting a new trumpet in my dad. So to me, I was like, why aren't we getting the ages of these people that are dying versus the over 60? A lot of people were saying it's HIPAA stuff. It didn't sound satisfying to me. I said I could get their age. I don't need their name. Just give me the guy was 89 and died in a nursing home. So,
yeah, you're right. And so here's the breakdown. And I'm going to show you this document. I don't know if you can, you're making this out, but this is a document that I get from the county that I get that gives me age breakdown, but it's still a wide range. So right now, total cases from those aged 0 to 17, total cases 59. So, and then it goes 18 to 40, then 41, 65, then over 65. Now, the reason they do that, frankly, Adam, is that the information would be too large to digest and to send out on a daily basis. It's just too much information. And frankly, they don't have a lot of this information yet, because when you're in a rapid fire scene like this, where you're triaging patients and you're putting patients in care, and then you've got to coordinate the morgue and all these other things, a lot of that data is not readily available to do on a daily basis. You're right, this is not a HIPAA situation. It's really more of the ability to collect the information situation.
Well, what about, let's say in the mortality page you have, if you have one that
Yeah.
has the deaths. And so 2 weeks ago, when they said 3 people had died in Orange County over 60 or over 65, I was like, why can't we get the ages of those 3 peoples? And do they do it now? Does it take a while for the data to come in? Like the 3 people that died 2 weeks ago, would we have their ages now?
Yes. And in the beginning, when there were only 1, 2, or 3 patients, what they were afraid of, there's also a reason why you don't find out the hospital that they're in. That becomes a privacy issue because it's easy to track down and trace that information. I know that the LA County Fire Department, for instance, had cases in one of their fire stations where they only had 2 firefighters that were infected, but they didn't want to say where and how because they didn't want people showing them up the doorstep of the fire station or their homes. And so, yes, there are privacy concern issues. So they just err on the side of caution. But today is sort of a pivotal point for them because they are starting to give us more detailed information. We have been assured by the county health department today on the public call that they are going to start giving us those breakouts in the next week or so. So we will start getting that information pretty quickly.
Do you have a mortality, 0 to 18, 18 to 34, how many in each group breakdown?
Not in each group. Overall in the county, based on the new stats, the mortality rate just inched up to 2.4%.
2.4%.
It's slightly higher than the national average, but according to officials, it's pretty much on par given the size of our county and the size of the population.
So 2.4% is mortality versus the people who have contracted it that we're aware of.
Right.
So we have almost 10,000 people who've contracted it and about 200 who've been who are mortalities or fatalities.
Right. So if you look at total cases overall, we're at 7,000 total positive cases, but looking at the total that had been treated in and out of the hospital and had been tested is like 30 or 40,000 people have already been tested. And then 20,000 of those have been negative. So when you put that all together, the mortality rate is based strictly on those who have died versus those in the county. It's a straight county population versus those who've died.
How are we doing with testing? And there's a lot of speculation that a lot of people are walking around with this and are unaware of it. And I guess the only way to really ascertain that answer is to randomly round up 5,000 people and test them and see who don't have symptoms and see what the positivity is on that. Is there any thoughts about that?
Well, yeah, and that's why they're asking everyone to stay home as a precaution because they don't know, and there is no way to go around and start randomly testing people like that. And that's why they don't want to take a chance on anyone who might appear to be asymptomatic out there walking around touching stuff or coughing on people or sneezing on people. That's why that they want everyone to stay home. And that's why the doctor said yesterday, she doesn't even want anyone grocery shopping this week. That's how serious it has become. So other than showing symptoms, no one really knows if they're a carrier or not. And that's why she was talking about, and I'm talking about Dr. Barbara Ferrer, the county health director. That's why she said in the very beginning, don't get a test unless you have symptoms, because you could test negative today and be positive tomorrow. So that's why it's so important to just stay home.
But shouldn't we figure out a way to test a group of people just to see if we can get an understanding of this theory about people being positive but not having symptoms?
But then again, we could, but you would have to do such just the statistics alone would be kind of untenable, because you would have to get these large groups of people all together to do this. And even still, you wouldn't have a very accurate count or any kind of static or any kind of stats that would show you what you need, because again, you would have to just get a bunch of, like if everyone here in my building right now, if we got all 10 of us together and started testing it, we're all negative, but tomorrow half of us could be positive.
Right, but I still think I could start to paint some sort of picture that if you said we took random 100 people from Orange County and a random 100 people from Riverside and a random 100 people from Los Angeles County, and we tested them, if it was a super high percentage who were asymptomatic, if a super high percentage of that 300 people came back as positive, I'd go, wow, I think this thing is something that people have and they're asymptomatic versus another outcome is what I'm saying. I mean, it
Yeah.
would never be proof positive. It would just
Right. So would this just make you feel better?
well, I look, I think if you said, let's put it to you this way. You think your kid has a problem with lice at school, right?
Right.
And my kid's got a class of 30 kids and they go from one class to the next class. They have 5 classes with 30 kids in it. If you said to me, would you like them to take 5 kids or 10 kids from their homeroom class and just test them for lice? I'd go, yeah, I think I could get a picture or an idea. It wouldn't be proof positive. It would give you some better clarity on whether there was a lice situation in their school. You wouldn't be able to test all the kids. You would only be able to get a small group, but I think some information would help you construct some answers.
Okay, so based on that theorem, so if you were to test those 10 people I was just talking about, and they all came up negative, but then 2 or 3 days later, 4 of them became symptomatic, and they had already been around spreading disease, that sort of negates that.
Well, I'm not telling them to rub heads together if they're if they don't have lice. No, that's the difference.
But if you're being told, yeah, I understand. But if you're being told all of a sudden that group of 10 people, no one's positive in this group, so you guys are good. You're good to go. But then come to find out, the symptoms have been, they're dormant, just like cancer cells or anything else. This virus is dormant, and we don't know when it's going to surface, if you even have the virus to begin with, or what it's going to trigger, or when the symptoms are going to trigger. That's why they want everyone to stay home for that 14 days.
I'm not arguing with stay home. I'm just arguing for information.
Or a snapshot.
I don't want people to change their behavior.
I feel like in Adam's proposed testing, the people wouldn't even know the results. Like, it would simply be for demographic study, like just so we knew what we were dealing with. Is that sort of what you're saying?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of people saying
it wouldn't be like you're good, go on your way. It would be like, oh, this is
and it wouldn't be
data.
It wouldn't be let's open Disneyland either. I just like I keep hearing people saying half the population has this and doesn't know it, and then I hear they know they don't, and I'm thinking, I'd like to know this one.
I think basically, Adam, what we should do is have Arbitron do this, because it sounds like something Arbitron should handle. I think
the old book. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's do the Arbitron. No, seriously, I understand what you're saying. And so here's the really frustrating part about this. You got a lot of scientists sitting in a room with a lot of charts, graphs, and maps. And they're all still trying to do all this statistical sort of modeling. And they're trying to put this together. It's like, well, if we've got this, 10,000 people that have tested positive in a population of 3 million, and then that means that we've got this X amount and this percentage, and the odds are it's going to, and at the rate of spread and at the rate that the positive cases are being detected, that's how they're coming up with all of this. And that, I think, might also help. I don't know if that'll help satisfy you a bit, but they're using this based on statistical modeling that seems to be working and has worked in other outbreaks.
Well, we're going to find out more as it goes. It's one of those things where I don't think there's any direction where you can go, this is positively going to work and that's positively not going to work. For me, it's just whatever information, the more information I can get, the better. Going full circle to having 3 people die above the age of 60 is fine. Having 3 people die, one's 81, one's 84, and the other's 89 is better. It's more specific to me. That the specificity is what I'm looking for.
Right.
Some of that
and we're going to get that.
Okay.
It's going to take a while. Here's the thing, you remember the 17-year-old boy from Lancaster who died just a few weeks ago. Yep. And initially they said he died from coronavirus. Well, then they backtracked that and said, well, we didn't really test him until after he passed away. So the test was done post-mortem. But they're like, okay, well, what was his cause of death? And then they said, well, his case is more complex. So now I've been on the phone with the CDC in Atlanta because they turned the case over to them. So everyone's got this kind of I want to say morbid curiosity, because this is a 17-year-old boy, presumably who's healthy. But Dr. Fauci from the federal government said that you're going to have what he calls these one-offs. You're going to have these people that have no symptoms, seemingly perfectly healthy, and they're just going to die from this because that's the way human nature is.
Yeah.
But to your point, Adam, we are going to get more details about this. It will eventually come in the form of a breakdown. They're just trying to compile as much information because we're also very needy in the media, and we're demanding a lot of this. So in order for them to keep up with our demand, they're having to do this in the most expeditious way possible.
Steve, thanks for your input. And if you don't mind, could you please do your lockout?
No, I'm sorry. I can't. I'm not like a monkey. I don't do this stuff on cue.
Oh, yes, you do.
By the way, I've never got I've never got a monkey to do a lockout. I've been
wait.
to do 1,000 times.
Actually, that doesn't surprise me. Doesn't Conway always try to get you to do it and you always refuse?
Right. And Gina, sweetheart, I have never done that lockout in front of you. Have I?
Really?
I've pressed that button 1,000 times.
Oh, no, but I've never done it in front of you.
No, that's true. Adam, would you like me to do it for Steve?
No, wait a minute. No, we did. You and I were in the truck down at on Tranny Alley.
Oh, jeez.
Oh, yeah, no, that's the official name. That was a long time ago.
Remember
That's
that?
right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you did see me file from down there. That's right.
I did. I shadowed you.
Are you telling me Steve Gregory, KFI, is something that's being fired from a sound machine? It's not actually Steve?
No, just when he's doing his full 30-second report, he's doing his own, he's giving these stats from the government and then he does his lockout. But I'm firing the button that's doing Steve's report.
Oh.
I don't think that's proprietary information that I'm pushing a button with Steve's
it's all pre-recorded.
Yeah.
Steve, I get if you're talking to, let's see, talking to Bruce Buffer and you want him to yell,
let's get ready to
rumble. That's an issue because that's copywritten. But I don't know if Steve Gregory KFI is copywritten. And by the way, if it was, you'd be the only guy who could say it. So I don't think there's any reason to get Garrigus involved with this. I think you just give the audience a thrill with your lockout. And who knows? This could go nationwide. You know what I mean? This could,
international podcast.
Yeah, it's a global
this
podcast.
could be your Where's the Beef or Here Come the Judge.
Sorry, Adam.
I hate myself.
Wow, he is not a groundling.
Wow.
Playing hardball.
No,
All right.
it's just something. I'm not a TV guy. There's a reason I'm in radio. I don't do this stuff on camera.
I will then lock it out for you. Thanks, Steve.
You got it, Adam. Anytime.
See you in a couple hours.
Bye, Gina.
Bye.
All right, let's see. See if I can work.
He's
this
a hard-boiled newsman.
I'm Steve Gregory, and I'm passive aggressive. All right,
Really? He cited the camera thing as a sticking point. He could have just slid out of frame.
Well, no, Conway's asked him to do it 1,000 times, and he's always turned him down. That's one of his things.
one of his things.
I've seen it before. I totally forgot. Conway's always asking him to do it, and he won't do it.
All right, let me hit Omaha Steaks, and we'll crank up some news up in here. Omaha Steaks stuck in, well, stock up. How about get some Omaha Steaks? They deliver the world's best steaks and a huge variety of family favorites without leaving home. And right now, they got limited time. You can stock up. Well, they're just saying, don't go to the supermarket, right? Well, where are you going to get your food? How about Omaha Steaks, everyone? They got a stock up sale just for our listeners. Go to omahasteaks.com, enter Adam into the search bar to unlock unique savings for my listeners. Guaranteed quality, safety with every order. Stock up, and you don't need to remember to get all the food and all the good solid protein you get at Omaha Steaks. A variety of ready-to-ship boxes available now. Enter Adam at the search bar and save over 50% on your order. Get free shipping on orders above $69, and it is Omaha Steaks, right, Dawson?
We love Omaha Steaks and our fans so much that we're giving away 5 boxes to the first 5 people who tweet us in a picture of their Omaha Steaks receipt using the code Adam, so that you can gift a box to your family or friends completely on us. That's right. Tweet us a picture of your receipt using the code Adam, and the Ace Man himself will send your loved ones an entire box of premium Omaha Steaks. Again, never been a better time to stock up on Omaha Steaks. Stock up sale is going on right now with ready-to-ship packages. Save 50% or more, plus free shipping on orders of $69 or more. That's omahasteaks.com. Type Adam in the search bar.
All right, let's take a quick break. We'll come right back. We'll do the news with Gina and Bob Bryan right after this.
Breaking viral, all those crazy Trump tweets. Give me news with Gina Grad. Trouble in the Middle East. Celebrity drunk meltdowns. Need news with Gina Grad.
The news with Gina Grad.
So Major League Baseball has confirmed that it's considering playing the season at one neutral location and with no fans in attendance. There had been reports that the commissioner is considering starting the season in May and playing all the games at various fields around Arizona, but looks like they're still trying to work it out, but many are getting on this no crowd train.
The no crowd train.
Weird.
That's the one from Chowchilla to Bakersfield?
Yeah, that's our super train, not the one in New Delhi.
Right.
The thing about baseball, I'm trying to think of what sport suffers the most. Now, the sport of baseball itself doesn't suffer as much as, I don't know, maybe basketball or football does, minus the crowd. But the reason to go to a baseball game is to drink some beers and eat some hot dogs, and it's a little less about the game, especially when it's game 41.
Right.
A little less about.
Yeah.
It's an excuse to get out of the house, to get out of work on a Friday, to take your kid out there to eat some peanuts and carnation frozen malt with a wooden paddle that cracks every time. Like, it's that experience. Whereas, I guess you'd think of it this way. If you think about going to a basketball game, the first thing you think about is like, who's playing? Who's on that team? Who are the Lakers going to play? They're playing some scrub team that's, 20 games under 500, or they're playing a tough team. So you do that. And then you're like, who's on the court? Who's playing? Is LeBron in that game? Is he injured? Blah, blah, blah. And at a certain, then you might think about parking and a few other things, but at a certain point you get to food, But when you think baseball, the first thought you have is like, what am I going to eat?
Yep.
Yeah.
How many beers?
Ballpark snacks.
When do we get locked out? Does beer line get locked off in the 7th inning? When's the beer line?
Can't be too safe.
Right. Should I bring a flask? So you start thinking about food immediately, which means you're there for kind of the communal experience of eating some hot dogs and drinking some beer in a judgment-free environment on a weekday at noon. So it's going to hurt the fans, this one. I don't know that it'll affect the play, but it's definitely not going to be fun for the fans.
That's a good point. And we talked to Dr. Ray Kasheri every night, and he said if doctors got to choose which sport got to go back to work first, he would absolutely pick baseball, because there's almost zero interaction with the crowd. So you're not sitting courtside, you're not being sweat on, you are separated by barriers and nets, and it would probably be the safest to go back to.
Maybe some good will come out of this, and it'll put an end to the weird incessant spitting that these guys do. And it's like, like the worst is when they're just standing at home plate and they're like,
could they ever stop?
Like, they just spit and they spit and they spit, and some of them are chewing seed and spitting, and others are just doing this weird licking thing where like, and it's like, please stop spitting all over the place all the time. Maybe we should mask on these guys, Brian.
I don't know if it's still a thing, but it used to be a thing. Chris can look it up. There used to be a lot of players who would do chewing tobacco mixed with bubble gum. Yeah, because they kind of, I don't know if that would mask the flavor. I don't know why. I really can't imagine.
I just can't believe there's a sport where you can eat while you're playing.
Oh yeah. A lot of them back in the day could smoke while they're playing. I mean, they'd sit on the bench and smoke. The skippers would smoke. These guys, I think they did away with the tobacco, but they replaced it with seeds.
Yeah, the sunflower seeds.
And they end up chewing it like it's like what vaping is to smoking a cigarette. It's like, well, it's not cigarettes, but you're still doing something.
Yeah.
And then there's a weird spitting, and the spitting is like through the center of the teeth. I don't know what it is.
Gleeking?
It's like it, but and I don't know why, other than you're bored, but let's stop that.
You should be bored.
I just got a text from the Laugh Factory saying, do you want to do stand-up? And I said, it said, do you want to do stand-up? There's only 4 people in the room. So
is it virtual? Would it be like broadcast over the internet?
Or those are 4 super important people.
They really got to work out. Yeah, they really got to work out their material.
The guy that books the Tonight Show. There's a guy from Kimmel, the guy from Conan, the guy from Fallon. There's only 4 guys.
Make them laugh.
He loves comedy.
That's right. So they said, you want to come out and do stand-up? There's only 4 people in the room. And I said, okay, how does it work? And they said, well, they stream it. Obviously they'll stream it. And I thought, okay, that'll be an experience. And then I said, what time? And they said,
Natalia swatted the phone out of your hands.
they said, yeah, she came around the corner like Charles Haley and just did went full Lawrence Taylor tomahawk on my blind side.
Strip sack.
You have to hire like a retired weak side tackle, the blind side guy, or
Tony Pacelli.
Yeah, he's got to keep an eye out. So, he said they broadcast it, I guess, and it's like 2 to 4 in the afternoon. So imagine doing stand-up at 3 o'clock in an empty club.
Whew.
Seems like the opposite of everything you like to do. But I said, yeah, I'll give it a shot. So we'll work that out.
When is that?
I don't know. I got the text moments before we heated up and went on the air. So I just sort of sent him back and said, he said, what day? And I just said, I'll have to figure it out. So we'll have to figure it out.
Talk about events that are tough without a crowd. I think we found the ultimate
tough crowd
example. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think you'd want to do material. I think you'd want to keep it to Corona, right? I think if you could. I mean, it's a tall order doing 20 minutes of new material, but I think we could do it.
Yeah, but you have all of the books to draw from.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're sort of pontificating and it's funny, that seems like that would be a great thing to do for this type of thing.
Gina's right. This is a great opportunity to break that rule. Don't tell stories, tell jokes. Fucking tell stories, man.
Yeah.
Tell all stories you want.
I shall. Sorry.
All right. Well, Tylenol is quickly disappearing from store shelves everywhere because there's this debate going on within, just society, some of the medical community, that you're not, or are you not supposed to be using ibuprofen for COVID-19 symptoms? That's sort of a hot debate right now. So everybody's buying Tylenol because some in the medical field say there's something about ibuprofen and Advil that's complicating these COVID-19 symptoms. And there's other doctors saying it makes no difference. But now that the debate's out there, the question has been raised, people are supermarkets sweeping the acetaminophen off the shelves, the Tylenol.
Mm-hmm. All my years, I still don't know the difference between which is what, and what the generic is for that. Never figured it out.
Acetaminophen is Tylenol, ibuprofen is Advil, and Advil is an anti-inflammatory, and the other one's just a fever reducer, as far as I understand.
Yeah, I have no relationship with that world whatsoever.
I have a Jewish mother, of course I know this.
Touched it. I don't know what to do, but it'd be nice if people didn't hoard. And I get the impulse. It's a human impulse. So there's a lot of human impulses, and what we're basically society to do is to go against your human impulses, which is I'm looking at things as my connection's unstable, but here it goes. I have an impulse to go to the beach, and now that it's empty, I really have an impulse to go to the beach, but we should deny that part where you get out of your car and go stand on the beach, because we're asking people not to do that. But that's an impulse. And, look at the impulse to touch your face. Everyone's wrestling with, it's your impulse to touch your face. We're asking you to stop doing it. Your impulse is to get all the food and all the medicine and all the toilet paper, and it's all for you.
It's ingrained. We're hunter-gatherers. You can get enough buffalo for the winter. You know what I mean?
Right.
For 18 winters.
So these things kind of bring out the worst impulse in many human beings. And so what we're asking, because essentially that's what a society is. A society is a whole bunch of people ignoring a lot of their impulses. You know what I mean?
You're right.
Your impulse is that parking space is mine. Yeah, but there's someone who was waiting for it before.
And it's not yours.
It's not yours. So give up on your impulses.
Well, and now, thank God, these grocery stores and pharmacies are finally having to regulate us for us because we can't be trusted. And it's a much more pleasant shopping experience. You go in and there are things there and people are moving slowly and they're not in attack mode because it says 1 item per customer or 2 items per customer. So you don't have to start, freaking out and elbowing people out of the way. You're only allowed to take 2 and move on. And that's what apparently we can't be trusted to do it another way.
Yeah, well, we've proven that under great conditions we can still be bad, and under stressful conditions it's a full fist fight in the electronics aisle of the Costco during the Black Wednesday or whatever it is. Like
Black Friday.
We can get ourselves into a lather pretty quickly.
Yeah,
we
you're
can
right.
spin out pretty fast.
You are right about that. Speaking of all these new rules, and Steve kind of went over the numbers, so we'll skip those. But New York Governor Andrew Cuomo has doubled the maximum fine for breaking social distancing. So now in New York, if you're caught gathering or doing things you're not supposed to be doing, you can get $1,000 fine.
I hear he's looking for that iconic couple, the one guy who was the sailor, the other gal that may have been the nurse. They were kissing in Times Square. I hear he's looking into seeing if they're still alive so he can go back and retroactively find them.
Make an example out of them.
Yeah, that's right. Set an example.
Everybody in that whole damn Times Square Old Lang Syne group, because I think that was New Year's. And of course, Chris Cuomo's still doing the show from the basement in his best hoodie.
Sorry, you were choppy. I think that picture's like they announced the Japanese surrendered or whatever.
Oh, I thought it was New
VJ
Year's.
Day. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
A Louisiana pastor, well then I'm glad you didn't hear it. A Louisiana pastor charged for violating coronavirus bans held a Palm Sunday service with 1,220 congregants. I was just looking at one of the quotes from one of the parishioners that said, like, I'm protected because I'm protected by the blood of Jesus, which seems a little not really what Jesus was going for in terms of looking out for your neighbor.
Also, he could have had the coronavirus. We don't know.
Yeah, he cured the sick.
Yeah, he's working with those lepers and whores. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? That's a pretty dirty community. Also, as an ex-carpenter, I can tell you those guys aren't Purell based at all.
No.
So strike 3. So God knows what was in his blood is what I'm saying. I'm going to use her argument and talk about Jesus's tainted blood.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Careful what you wish for.
That's
right.
Careful what you pray for.
That's right.
Dana White might be doing something kind of crazy. We talked about holding all these events and sporting events with no audience. He's going one further. He may have found a way to bring UFC back. He tells TMZ Sports he's closing a deal to host the fights on a private island. He says he's already locked up the location for UFC 249, which starts April 18th, but he's keeping it a secret. He'll run fights there every week for 2 months. Afterwards, he'll move the octagon to the undisclosed island where he'll fly international fighters in on private jets. White says that every person involved in the fights, from production staff to fighters, will be screened thoroughly. They have to have, I think below a 100.4 temp. And Joe Rogan should still be available to call the fights despite him having health concerns. So it's going to a private island, apparently.
100.4. People run that hot, huh?
I guess that seems to be the the marker.
So here's all I want to say. I grew up, there's a lot of professional wrestling going on, and there's always this thing which is loser leaves town. Except for everyone was from out of town. So it really wasn't that tough. You know what I mean?
I'm leaving anyway.
Yeah. If I go to Wisconsin to do stand-up, and they're like, okay, Carolla, but if you're not funny, you're leaving town. I'd be like, yeah, I am. Southwest tomorrow, 7 a.m.
Either way.
First flight out.
Leaving town, especially when you're in a shitty town where they're having these podunk kind of wrestling competitions, these smokers, not much of a threat. But how about this? Loser stays on the island. You can't go back home. You got a year on that island.
Right now, that should be the winner.
Well, let's up the ante is what I'm saying. What I'm saying is each guy gets paid. You know what I mean? You're doing, let's just say, big prize fight. For the sake of argument, Khabib's getting $10 million. Tony Ferguson's getting $10 million. You win, you get the belt and $10 million. You get back on the private jet. You go back to wherever you're from. You lose, you get the $10 million, no belt, get back on the private jet and go back. It doesn't seem like enough for losing.
Right.
That's a good point.
I'm saying I want you to stay on that island. You've got to think about what you did wrong.
Real stakes.
You could do a full Rocky montage where you found a black friend to run along the beach with in slow motion and then hug in the waist deep in water.
Yeah.
Sure.
Awkward hug. Yeah.
Little Castaway style. You don't know when
Full
someone's coming
Castaway.
back for you.
Full Castaway.
Yeah.
We'll have
That's a good
boxes
idea.
float up with skates in them and volleyballs and stuff like that. But you got to live off the fat of the land.
It's great.
Then we
Now
spin
here,
off
yeah.
this whole show like Ultimate Fighter. This is Ultimate Survivor.
Yeah.
Every week, once we get the critical mass, once we get 20 guys on this island, all living off the land, growing out beards, emaciated,
Sure.
missing their loved ones and
Naked
children,
and afraid. Yeah.
naked and afraid. Then they go back into the octagon and we have elimination fights
Yeah.
to see who can fight their way off that island.
Who really wants to get home?
Who really wants it?
This is fantastic.
I
I take
watch
back
the
everything.
shit out
I
of
said.
that.
That's
I
great.
would watch the shit out of that.
That'd be fantastic. The only reality show I watched.
It would be great. You'd have to fight your way off the island.
God, what
Jeff
would it be
Probst is
called?
waving a plane ticket. It's
Yeah.
like, who wants it?
He's standing there with his choker, standing on the dock. He's got a ticket there. Oh, yeah.
I'm trying to
Got
come
it.
up with titles as fast as I can. You got any? The only you guys wouldn't know this. There's a musical called Once on This Island. Punch on This Island. I don't know. We got to think of something. You got to pitch it.
There was a dandy of a film called Cutthroat Island.
Okay.
That
And
might,
at the time, the biggest bomb of all time.
that's right. Gina Davis, I believe.
Yep. Rennie
And-
Harlan.
And Matthew Modine.
Matthew Modine.
Yeah. So obviously Island is good. You know what I mean? I mean, you end with Island. In front of it, it's Elimination Island, Cutthroat Island, Fist Fight Island, Combat Island, that kind of stuff. We work it out, but nobody's
Okay.
getting, no losers getting off that island.
I like it. This just in from Gary because you said Khabib. Just FYI, it's now Ferguson and Gaethje.
Oh yeah, Khabib's not leaving Russia or whatever. The guy.
Yeah.
First off, there's footage of him at age 9 wrestling a bear. He doesn't have delicate sensibilities. He literally, he grew up in a village where he was like encouraged to wrestle wildlife. They're literally,
Nurmagomedov.
yes, that's him. He comes from a place where as a lad, he was encouraged to wrestle bears.
Yeah.
I swear to God, there's footage of that. I don't know why this guy can't go on an island with a rigorous screening process and fight for megabucks.
One of the limitations of my setup here is I can't listen to drops ahead of time, but I think this would be this. I think this would make a good tagline for a reality show.
I'll UFC you in hell, dude.
Oh yes.
I'll UFC you in hell. Here's Khabib wrestling with a full-grown bear at age 9
That's good.
on a
Oh,
dirt
he's got his arm.
on a trash and dirt-filled floor. Nobody is worried about germs in this scenario. He is on a patch of littered dirt and something that ends with Stan, and he's wrestling a bear.
That is so adorable and terrifying at the same time.
He's age 6.
Nurmagomedov.
Yeah, so let's not worry about him being a germaphobe. That guy's immune system, first off, he's had other men's blood in his mouth since he was 9. You understand? Like when you're beating on some guy and you open a cut over that guy's face, like, I mean, you open a guy up big time with, guy's going to take 28 stitches above his brow, and that guy's above you. And he's got you, he's got full guard or position on you. That guy's just dripping blood onto you. Those guys get covered in each other's blood and sweat. Think about what his immune system is like every
He has the immune
day.
system of 100 men.
Every day he is wrestling with some other sweaty guy who's mashing his blood and sweat, and it's getting into his eyes. They don't wrestle with masks on or goggles or anything. There is shit going in that guy's face all day long. Every mucous membrane he owns has been violated. And he was raped by a bear.
You should be his hype man.
I think you are.
My
Adam
point
King.
is that guy couldn't get anything from anybody. Now get on a fucking plane and go to an island. There's something going on. It's Russia. We don't get any more info. I
It
don't know
stinks
what's
to high
going on.
hell.
There's something up. Why wouldn't that guy fight? Everyone's being tested. And again, you're in a sport where the other guys, the guys you deal with are it's a nonstop germ fest. Every one of those gyms. Yes, Gina. I mean, bald. Sorry.
This is better than Kyle Reese's speech in Terminator. Can't be reasoned with. He can't be bargained with.
He was raped by a bear at age 6.
He doesn't feel pity or remorse.
That is what I'm saying. So Khabib, get on that plane. Because the whole thing is Khabib is the guy. Ferguson is a guy, but the guy is Khabib, right? And so when you get rid of Khabib and you replace him with Gaethje, now you have a guy and a guy. And the thing about a big fight, go back to Muhammad Ali. Well, it would be Muhammad Ali fights guy you've never heard of, but it was still a Muhammad Ali fight. And so there was a chance that he could get beat by this guy you never heard of, and thus you'd tune in. These guys, Ferguson and Gaethje, are great fighters, but they're not what you've heard of, household namey stuff. So you need one of those guys. So you remove the guy we kind of want to see get beat. The Khabib is relatively unbeatable. And as I've said, when he's not being raped by a bear, he's jumping barefoot into the stands and attacking family members of other fighters. So this guy's not germ. He's not germ averse.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Hopefully more will come out about that because I think you're right. There's something going on there. J.K. Rowling. She's fully recovered after experiencing all the symptoms of coronavirus, even though she'd never been officially tested. Along with that news, she tweeted out this video of a doctor explaining how to relieve respiratory symptoms. She said the technique helped her a lot. I know there's lots of crazy videos going around, and one's telling you to stick hair dryers up your nose, and doctors are saying, please don't do that. But this is one that she tweeted out. I believe he's a nurse, and it's just a couple of breathing exercises either to prepare you for or when you already have these symptoms.
And I want you guys to start doing this if you have the infection right from the beginning. If you want to do it before you even pick up the infection, good idea. Anyway, the way it will work is you will take 5 deep breaths in, and each time you'll hold your breath for 5 seconds. On the 6th deep breath, you will take it in and you will do a big cough and covering your mouth. Okay, you will do this twice, and then you will then lay flat on your bed with a pillow in front of you, taking slightly deeper breaths for the next 10 minutes.
Hold on.
You've got to understand.
Hold it. This is Sacha Baron Cohen.
Oh no, I was fooled.
And you bite the pillow. You bite the pillow.
Oh, you didn't let me finish.
And then you're penetrated by a mop handle. Now, film this and put it up on the Zoom network.
With hashtag.
Okay. Hashtag. Yeah. All right.
So basically what he's saying, because I had to watch it a couple times to make sure, 2 times you do 2 reps of this, 5 deep breaths or 6 or whatever. On the last one, you cough out as much as you can, and then you lay on your stomach, not on your back, because he said people don't really realize this. A lot of your lung capacity is in your back. So you lay on your stomach and do this again with deeper breaths, just to push out whatever, I don't know. I don't want to put words in his mouth, but to push out whatever gunk or shit lies dormant at the bottom of your lungs. But that's what J.K. Rowling retweeted. She said it helped her. So you never know, and it's a lot less dangerous than sticking a hairdryer up your nose, which was also going on.
Weren't we just angry at her for something? She defended some person.
Oh, God forbid.
Yeah, she was in the news
thing.
3 weeks ago or something, right before this whole thing started, it feels like.
Then she's the winner of COVID-19.
She's a winner.
There's a she just missed it because she said something about some transgender thing, and then she got taken out to the woodshed and beaten by society, and then this thing cropped up. But maybe now that she got it, she gets some sympathy points. I'm trying to. She's under fire for defending a woman who lost her job after saying trans women aren't real women. That was that's what she got initially beaten for. But I think she just missed her window of winner for COVID-19.
Right.
Although we did kind of forget about it.
That's ultimately a win in her book.
Yeah, it happened sort of outside the window of the virus, but again, they're winners that happen within the window of the virus, and then they're winners who we got inundated with so much information we just flushed out everything that happened a month before.
That's right.
All right, Gina, you do one more. I'm going to look for something that's at my feet. So
you got it. Tori Spelling has announced she's doing a virtual meet and greet for 20 fans. Pretty exciting. The only catch is
she has 20 fans.
Well, hopefully for her, $95 a pop. Not surprisingly, Spelling's venture caused an almost immediate backlash on social media, with followers angry about the steep price during a time when so many don't have jobs and they're struggling and there's a pandemic. The reality star and husband, Dean McDermott, have been plagued by their own financial issues for years. She's been sued twice by American Express for failing to pay her balances of $38,000 on one, $88,000 on the other. And in 2017, the couple was sued by City National Bank for failing to make monthly payments on a loan. They have 5 kids, 13, 11, 8, 7, and 3. So, while everyone's jumping on Cameo, I'm on Cameo, by the way. I don't have a birthday or anything. And, doing it this way, she wanted to do a special meet and greet and charge almost $100 a pop.
Attention,
I don't know that
Tori
that's gonna
Spelling.
work out.
Attention, Tori Spelling's disgruntled fans. Gina's available for a much cheaper.
Oh, for a song. I love doing
things.
That.
I got thoughts. Sorry, I'm looking for a spot. I got a pile of paper here, and it dropped off. But anyway, Tori Spelling. First off, her dad was unreasonably rich,
but
insanely rich, and he had a house in Holmby Hills that was across the street from the Playboy Mansion that had to be, when it sold, it had to sell for $57 million. If it sold for a penny. Then there's Candy Spelling, the mom. And Candy Spelling is nuts and vindictive and whatever, and took the money and got herself a luxury condominium on Wilshire Boulevard and put all the money into that. And I guess has cut off Tori. Candy is Tori's biological mom, I believe.
Yeah.
You could see this kind of shit happening with the trophy wife who came along when
last minute.
Yeah, the biological daughter was 17 and a half, and a chick who showed up was 31, and there was a lot of daggers and arguments and never got on. And then the dad passed away, and now she's got all the money and blah, blah, blah. But I do believe she's the biological mom. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure what happened with those two, but, my mom doesn't have a pot to piss in, so I can talk all the shit I want. If she had a $55 million house and dad died, I'd be kissing some ass. I don't know where Tori is. I don't know how this rift came about, but there's no way the family doesn't have money. Even in syndication with all the Love Boats and all that.
90210.
It's so he generated so much. Aaron Spelling generated so much money over the course of his career, and those checks still have to be piling in. So what happened? And then what about the brother?
Yeah. Well, the first two things that come up, Showbiz Cheat Sheet and Mercury News, both say Tori inherited just $800,000 from her dad. And it says both of the kids just inherited a tiny fraction of their dad's $500 million fortune.
Well, of course it would go to Candy Spelling. Right? Because she was so
right. But, he could have set up a trust for his kids.
Well, yeah, he could have. Well, but here's the thing. So what's up with Candy? So if Candy has more money than God and she's 77 and a half, what's going on? And
here's it.
You know who would probably know this is AJ Benza.
That's true.
He knows Tori pretty well.
Allegedly.
He doesn't like telling tales out of school, though, Brian.
Maybe just this once we can squeeze some info from him.
He plays it pretty
I know.
Close to
What if you just called him like as though you're just calling for a friend, but like it's actually being recorded? Like, he didn't know it was being broadcast. Maybe he'd come forth.
We'll see if we can coax him out of his shell. Sorry. Yes, we should talk to AJ. Make a note, Max Zapata. How old is Tori? How old is Candy? How much is Candy worth? And why can't Candy kick something down to Tori? Not that Tori deserves it, but what is the rift? I think there's a rift there.
46.
Yeah, I'm looking
74.
at a very clickbait headline from 2014 that says, quote, Tori can drop $60,000 in one store. Candy Spelling reveals why her daughter only received $800,000 of her famous father's inheritance. But I'm not really seeing an answer, so that's why I'm saying it's a little clickbaity. But I am seeing, as I scan, this says Tori 41, and this was in 2014.
She's 46 now, and
yeah,
Candy's
so
74.
she's openly discussed her efforts to tighten her belt in recent months, despite reporting having celebrated daughter Stella's 6th birthday, $6,000. I mean, this can't come down to Candy's belt tightening.
No.
Let's
All
see.
right. Well, either way, boo-hoo. Wait a minute. How would that sound if, Grad, don't think of her name.
Wah. You know how many people are struggling right now, Adam? There are real problems out there. I can't worry about Candy and Tori Spelling and which one got almost $1 million and which one got almost $1 billion. I got to focus on my kids. I got to focus on this pandemic. I got to focus on my faith.
Hey, Nancy Grad, Tori Spelling and Candy Spelling are alive. Aaron Spelling, not alive. He seemed in pretty good health, even for an older man. And all of a sudden, he just comes up dead, and this multi-million-dollar fortune goes right to Candy, and nobody ever looked into it. I haven't seen an autopsy report. Have you?
Adam, I'm so glad you said that. You have opened Pandora's box. I have been screaming this to the high heavens for years. What did happen to Aaron Spelling, and why is Candy so happy about it?
He was a spry 89.
He had the world at his fingertips. He had his whole life ahead of him. Everybody knew it. Everybody had designs on him. Everybody wanted their claws in him. He was doing just fine. And all of a sudden, he mysteriously disappears. Well, I'd like to see that autopsy. I'd like to see that coroner's report.
He was cut down in his prime.
I couldn't agree more.
Here's more proof. He was murdered. He was planning on doing other things.
That's right. That's absolutely right. He had business meetings. I have the paperwork. I have the receipts. I have the phone calls that he was taking other meetings to do other projects. So you tell me, is this foul play or is this foul play?
He had a project, I happen to know, that was already in pre-production called Love Shuttle. It was the love boat in outer space.
And it was going to make
celebrities and put them on a shuttle.
That's right.
There was a character that was sort of like Elon Musk. I don't want to say too much about it, but he was working on this stuff. He was a spry 89, cut down in his prime. And again, I'm not saying there isn't an autopsy report. I'm saying I've never seen it. Have you?
No, I haven't. And I bet you dollars to donuts, Adam, if you were to look out onto the backyard of that beloved Mr. Spelling, you would just see one swinging back and forth with nobody on it. That's where Aaron was taken. And I intend to prove it.
Yeah, it's a 127-year-old grandmother or mother, I should say's nightmare is what it is.
That's right.
To have your 89-year-old boy cut down in his prime that way. I say we exhume the body.
Yes.
I say we go to Forest Lawn and we look into this because
I think and I think I know that this was foul play. And I, Nancy Grace, am devoting a brand new show, prime time, on the HLN network to what the hell happened to Aaron Spelling, Friday nights at 9 p.m.
We'll be watching. All right, Gina, let's bring it home.
You got it. I'm Gina Grad, and that's the news.
Gina.
That was the news with Gina Grad.
Well, last but not least, bet online. No NBA, no NHL, no MLB. Although MLB may get started up and might have something to bet on. Well, but there's all kinds of other sports going on out there. Stuff you never would have thought of putting a wager on, but now you can. Bet online has all the action, and you can find it right at Bet Online. This is our exclusive partner at Podcast One, Bet Online. Take advantage of the best bonuses in the business. Sign up for a free account with the promo code Podcast1 for 100% sign up bonus, and it's easy to do. You just visit betonline.ag. Don't forget, use the promo code Podcast1 for your 100% sign up bonus. Do it today at BetOnline, your online sportsbook experts. That's betonline.ag. All right. You may go to adamcarolla.com and find my book over there, or T-shirts or swag or whatever, and pre-order. I'm your emotional support animal. We'll have the audiobook ready for pre-order and the book ready for pre-order as well. Also, you can go to Chassis, CHASSY.com, and check out all the movies we have procured for you there. Get a Blu-ray or whatever. We'll sign it, send it out to you. And then you can check out our YouTube station. Watch this show. Watch the stand-up there, youtube.com/Adam Carolla. So thank you for that. And until next time, this is Adam Carolla for Steve Gregory and Gina Grad and Bald Brian saying mahalo.
Salutes the winners of the COVID-19 pandemic. Santa Anita Racetrack, you're a winner across the board. 56 horses died at your track in 2018 and 2019. In January of this year, 3 more died. But coronavirus took the lead in the stretch, and your season was scratched in February. So now we get to focus on dead humans, while we've forgotten about the very impressive horse body count you've racked up. So congratulations, Santa Anita Racetrack. While we're all losers, you are the winner of COVID-19.
Very good, Dawson. Larry the Cable Guy has joined us via Zoom. Good to talk to you, Larry.
Yeah, you too, Ed. It's the first time I've ever done one of these fancy Zoom deals.
I enjoyed your special very much. Remain seated. Yes, it's available now on demand and Amazon and YouTube and Apple TV and Google Play. It's all there. It was filmed in Joliet at the Rialto Square. Beautiful theater and a very funny night with Larry the Cable Guy. So enjoy that. And go to LarryTheCableGuy.com. Thanks, Larry.
Yeah, glad you liked it. I think it's some of my best stuff. You know, the one-liners all hit pretty good, and the topics were good. I didn't think I could ever write any more Walmart jokes, but by golly, I found 7 more minutes.
Yeah, it was real funny. And in a world where a lot of guys are up there telling stories, Larry's up there telling jokes, and there's a reason why people like jokes.
Yeah.
So it was very funny.
Yeah, thanks. You know, I've always been, well, you know, man, all my stuff has always been, I'm a one-liner guy. There's not a lot of them left anymore. You know, Todd Yon and Jeffrey Ross still does one-liners and his roasts. And that's just the style I've always done in all of my CDs and specials. And I didn't think I could, you know, I've done a ton of these. And when they asked me, Comedy Dynamics asked me to do another one, I was like, well, let me see what I got minute-wise. My gosh, I only had to come up with about another 10 minutes. So we went ahead and did a special. I think it's some of my best stuff.
I believe, and you talked at the end, one of the last jokes you told was a joke about Mater and cars and that iconic role and just how funny that was and how much you brought to that role, and the story of John Lasseter sort of bringing you on in that role, and how he looked at a lot of actors and then just saw a blue collar comedy special and called you. But why don't you tell us, you don't have to do the routine for us, but just tell us how that role came about.
Yeah, you know, it's crazy. It was 2003. I just came off the road and my manager called me and said, hey, go check your fax machine. I said, okay. And I picked it up, and it was a letter faxed to them from Pixar. And it said they want to offer me the role of, at the time, it wasn't Mater, it was Zeb. But it said, we want to offer you the role of Zeb, our talking tow truck. And I was like, well, this is real. I said, so I called him up. I said, what is this? He goes, it's a Pixar movie. They want you to be the tow truck. And I said, well, when do I got to go audition for it? He goes, you don't have to audition. You already got the part. You got it. I said, really? So I'm not kidding. It was like one of the greatest things that ever happened to me. And so I went out there and I met John and all the people from Pixar. They were really awesome, and got to talking to him. And I went in and I did my stuff. He told me he'd been through, he said he'd been through 150 voice actors and 200 celebrities, and he just couldn't find the voice. And at the last minute, he had one day to go before he could find somebody. Picked in a blue collar comedy CD. I was the first guy up. And he said he was laughing so hard he was doubled over. He said, call that guy. I just found my tow truck. So that's why he called me and got me. And the funny part of that story is I went out there and I was nervous. And he got me in the booth and told me how we did things. And so I did my lines. I probably only had 25 lines. I did it and I went home. I didn't hear from Pixar for daggone 6 months. I called my manager. I said, whatever happened to that cartoon I was doing? Did I get fired or something? He says, well, let me call and check. And then he called me back and said, you sitting down? I said, yeah, well, he goes, they love Mater so much. They think he's the heart of the movie that they're going ahead and they're rewriting a lot of the movie and putting more Mater in it. And man, that was unbelievable. So that's pretty much that whole story there. But I can tell you the ship story if you want.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to force you to do your act on the computer. I'm just go ahead.
What he did was, when it was all said and done, I won't do the whole act. I'll just tell you what it is. Sometimes John Lasseter forgets that my regular comedy voice is my Mater voice. It's the same thing. And so he wanted me to make a ship's announcement on a cruise ship one time, and he wanted me to tell everybody thanks for coming on the boat as Mater. And then he wanted Mater to introduce me and have me tell everybody thanks for coming to the show. So when I did the announcement, it was the same daggone voice. It didn't change. And he came up to me after, all embarrassed. He goes, oh my gosh, I forgot. It's the same thing. It's so funny that happened. So they'll hear it when they hear the special.
I'm trying to figure out what the hell happened to John Lasseter. I've met him a couple times. He was in a documentary I made about Paul Newman, getting back to cars, and I found him to be a delight and a genius and a guy who took Pixar or created Pixar, did whatever he did for Pixar. That guy generated billions of dollars and some of the best work in animation and beyond. Those Pixar films are better than most all non-animated films.
Yeah, he's a genius.
He's a genius. And then one day he's gone. And then the story is well, during the Christmas party, he had a few drinks. And I don't know what he ever did. I don't know if anyone ever said what he did. Have you heard anything?
Man, Adam, I'm with you. I have no clue. Him and I were really good buddies. I would go out there and I would stay at his place, and he always took good care of me. And my wife would come with me, and my wife just thought he was awesome. And I honestly, I'm with you. I have no idea. I think it's the strangest, most amazing story ever. I've always found him to be awesome. And I honestly, I'm with you. I have no idea. Ever since that happened, I have not heard a peep out of him. So I'm with you. I love the guy to death, but I don't know what happened.
Well, there's some Me Too guys that are pretty easy to wrap your head around, like Harvey Weinstein.
Yeah.
And then there's other guys like Al Franken, where you go, God, doesn't seem like the punishment fit the crime, but at least I know what he was accused of doing. And then there are guys like John Lasseter, and there's a few of these guys out there where you just go, I don't know what the story was. And to me, that's the scary part.
Well, he's one of those guys, and I've been around people like that. They're just real huggy, you know. I mean, there wasn't John Lasseter would hug me, and John Lasseter would hug my wife, and I mean, he was just a nice guy. I don't think he never meant anything by it. I mean, that's my experience with him. That's your experience with him. I have no idea. I don't know any of the story, but as far as I'm concerned, I thought he was awesome, and it's a shame, you know. I used to talk to him all the time, and I still love the guy. But I'm with you. I just think we get certain points in our country where we just take things and then we just, you know, push them as far as you can push them, and it doesn't seem right.
Well, the scary part is the reaction of the employer who you go, they go, I just don't want any trouble. I don't want any bad press. Let's moving on. Turn the page. Get him to resign. Give him a severance thing. Turn the page. Get on. And you go, yeah, but none of these allegations are true. Or don't you want him to have a chance to defend himself? And the answer is, I don't care. We're moving on. We can't take this.
Right.
So that's the scary part.
Well, yeah, and I'm with you. I mean, if you're going to pit him up against people like Weinstein and stuff, it's ludicrous, you know? I mean...
Well, it is. So you, I know bits and pieces of your early life and your career, and I know how you started off, and I think we were talking about you doing some radio in Florida.
Right.
And spinning that off into performing live. Where were you when you were 16? What did you think the plan was at 16? And the reason I ask is because when you talk to the aforementioned Jeff Ross and you go, what were you doing at 16? He goes, I was working at my dad's catering, whatever, but I wanted to be a comedian. And
right.
when you talk to Dave Chappelle, he'll go, I was already a comedian. But,
right.
But guys like you and I that were a little more blue collar, it wasn't something I was thinking about at 16. I was thinking about getting a job.
Yeah, me either. You know, when I grew up in a small town in southeast Nebraska, and I grew up next to the cattle sale barn, and I was a pig. We raised pigs. And my whole life, I wanted to be a cattle auctioneer, right. And I wanted to drive a potbelly semi-hauler and haul hogs. I mean, honestly, that's what I want. And to this day, I love auctioneering. My best friend is an auctioneer. One day he came to my house and I came with him. We went from Tulsa all the way to my house, 6 hours. And the entire way, he had a tape player in his car. And the entire way, we listened to 4 hours of the 6-hour trip. We listened to 3 tapes of the Oklahoma auctioneer state championships.
Oh, wow.
And you know what's crazy? We enjoyed every minute of it. So that's what I wanted to do when I was a kid. And then I moved to Florida, which was a complete different culture. So when I moved to Florida, I hung out with the country kids in Florida because I was a country kid from Nebraska. So it was a complete culture shock. But I had no clue what I wanted to do. I really didn't. Not until I started when I was about 21 years old. About 21 years old, I started bellhopping at the Hyatt Regency. My mom worked there. She got me a job there because I needed a job. And I was going to college. I was going to a Baptist college in Georgia. And I played baseball and I loved it. So I wanted to sit out the fall. So when spring came, I'd have enough money. I wouldn't have to work my way through school. So I got a job working at the Hyatt Regency, and I was always a funny guy. So my job was to drive the van and drive airline crews back and forth to the airport. And they would always request me because I was always cracking jokes and was friendly. And they were always like, you should be a comedian. You should be a comedian. Never thought about it. And then one day, comedy just started hitting right there in the mid-'80s. And my buddy said, hey, there's an open mic night. You should go down and get on stage. And so I did, and I got hooked. And from that point on, you know, I just started working on it. But not until I was in my early 20s did I have any clue what I was going to do.
Well, you had a sense of humor that was just kind of innate, right? It was in you.
Yeah.
But as a young guy growing up, there are a lot of people with a sense of humor. It doesn't seem like a way to make a living. You know,
Right.
it's almost like sports. You know, you knew a lot of guys that were into sports. None of them turn out to make a living doing
Right.
sports, but like young guys screw around. They like to roast each other. They like to bust each other's chops. You know, it's kind of a sparring they do kind of verbally. And so you're not sure if this is a way you can make a living or just a way you can get the better of your buddies or entertain some pilots from Delta on the way to the airport, right?
Right.
And
I had no clue. I mean, it was something that I wanted to do. Look, growing up, I was always funny. You know, I always had good timing. You know, if there was, my dad was going off at the house or something, you know, I was always the person that could throw in a funny joke and kind of lighten up the mood. And so I always had it in me, but I never knew I could be a success at it. You know, it was just something that was fun. I really loved being on stage. It gave me confidence in my life. I didn't really have a lot of confidence. So it was something, as soon as I started getting laughs, it was something that I felt like, man, this is awesome. And it gives me confidence. And I feel like I'm in control of the situation. And so I really fell in love with it. I just fell in love with being on stage and having people laugh at you and being able to make them laugh. I didn't know where it would go, but here was the cool thing about stand-up early on. When you're on stage and you're making people laugh and you're outgoing and you're friendly, I was getting job offers left and right. People go, well, if this comedy doesn't work out, we could use a guy like you. You know what I mean?
all right.
And I knew if it didn't work out, man, I had 50 cards from 50 businesses where I could have worked for anybody because they want to hire somebody like you.
Well, that's a good point, which is, you know, I tell people all the time, take an improv class, not because you're going to join the cast of SNL. It just makes you better when you're working at your job, when you're interacting with people, or when you're having a conversation, or when you're out on a first date. You know what I mean? Like, these skills can apply to many other facets of life. And so when you see a guy who's gregarious and he knows how to interact and he knows how to string together, turn a phrase, and so on and so forth, you go, I want that guy answering my phones or working at my front desk or driving people to the airport. Like, if it doesn't work out in this arena, I could use those skill sets in another arena.
Yeah, exactly. So I knew it was going to lead to something, but I wasn't sure what it was. Fortunately for me, it worked out, you know, but I've always been a go-getter. I've always had a pretty good work ethic. And, you know, I learned from Foxworthy a long time ago. Jeff Foxworthy, I met him in 1986, and he's like my adopted brother. You know, I love him to death, but he always said to me, he said, hey, look, you got to remember when you're doing stand-up, he goes, there may be funnier people than you, but make sure there's no harder worker than you. He goes, because it's called show business for a reason. Everybody likes the show part, but not everybody's good at the business part. So if you're good at the business part, the show part's going to come with it if you deliver. And he's right. You know, you got to get up and you got to make the calls. You can't always just go after the money. If the money's not right, you go after the opportunities, because you never know what opportunity you're going to have. And I'll tell you, Adam, that's one cool thing. You know, I was on the road, and I remember when I got the Blue Collar Comedy Tour, I was on the road. I just developed the Larry the Cable Guy character. I was out on the road, and I was gone almost for a month and a half straight. I came home. I had 1 weekend off. And I went fishing with my buddy Greg out in Lake Butler in Windermere, Florida. And we're out there, and I wasn't sooner out there, an hour and a half. My manager called me at the time. Said, listen, I know it's your only weekend off, but they're doing a show called History of Country Comedy at the Ryman Auditorium in Nashville. They need one more guy. Somebody couldn't make it. They need one more guy. You'll be the only guy not getting paid, but they will put you up in a hotel and take care of your airfare. Jeff Foxworthy was hosting it with Andy Griffith. And I remember telling my manager, well, I haven't seen Jeff in a while. I'd love to see Jeff, but I've never worked the Ryman Auditorium, and I'm a country music fan. It would be so cool to work the mother of country, the mother church of country music. And I said to her, I said, besides, you never know who's going to be there. Maybe they'll put me on a country tour or something. You know what I mean?
Right.
So on my own dime, I went out on stage and I killed it for 7 minutes. And I came home 2 weeks later. Jeff had called and said, man, we want to try you out on this blue collar thing we're doing because, man, you just slayed it up there in Nashville. So if I would have just chased the money and said, no, they're not paying me, I would have never got on the blue collar comedy tour. So,
well, you know, it's funny. Not maybe the polar opposite of Larry the Cable Guy, but I was speaking to John Tesh the other day. And
right. Not a John Tesh story. That's impressive.
John Tesh was a guy who had a very comfortable living working for like Entertainment Tonight, got a big fat paycheck, he was a big star and everything, but he wanted to play music. And no one wanted him to play music. They wanted him to be John Tesh and sit next to Mary Hart, you know. And he said, I want to play Red Rocks in Colorado, and I want to do a whole concert there. And people told him no. And he mortgaged his house and got together $600,000 and went out there and shot himself doing a concert at Red Rocks. And it turned out to be a big sensation. And PBS kept running it, or KCT or whatever. It launched his career. He said he went from selling, I don't know, 30 records a week to 50,000 a week and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And I said, yeah, but you never know. You know, I have gone out and done things for free and nothing has become of it. And then you've gone out and done things for free and a lot has become of it.
Exactly.
So you're not there to figure out in advance what's going to work and what's not going to work. Your job is to go out and do stuff for free and do it well. And
yeah. And you're not always going to capitalize on it, but man, the ones you do capitalize on it, it was worth going up and doing something like that.
Well, also, you never know who's watching and why. You know,
Right.
you know who's watching if so-and-so is in the audience or so-and-so is backstage, but you don't know what's in their head. You don't know that they're thinking, you know, so you got Jeff Foxworthy and he's thinking, I want to add somebody else to this blue collar comedy tour. And he's watching with that in mind. He's not just watching, he's watching with something in mind. What's in mind? You don't know what's in mind. Sometimes you don't think anything's in mind, but something's in mind. And then of course that tape gets the Lasseter, or the special gets the Lasseter, or Lasseter sees it on TV, and now you're one of the biggest characters in one of the biggest franchises ever. So who knows? And
so crazy, isn't it? I mean, just from that one night of going up and performing at the Ryman, all that came my way. So yeah, you're right. You never know.
It's funny. Just a few minutes ago, or about an hour and a half ago, I got a text from the Laugh Factory and said, you want to come out and do stand-up? We got 4 people in the audience. I said, yeah, I'll do it, because they're going to stream it, and who knows who the hell's watching. Maybe Jeff Foxworthy's watching, maybe Lasseter's watching, maybe Foxworthy's on Lasseter's shoulders, and they're watching, and they like my coronavirus set.
Hey, maybe you'll get the funny bone chain.
Yeah, get the funny bone chain. It's crazy. So you must have shot this thing, you know, several months before all the shit went down. But now there's no more working out as a comedian. What is your normal process when things are right in society? What is the process of, like, you had a ton of jokes in there, a ton of funny jokes, and I was watching it and I was going, is he writing all these jokes? Does he have someone he writes with? What's the process of developing these jokes? How much dropping in do you do? Where's the closest comedy club to where you live?
Right. Well, if I have a lot of jokes to work out, what I'll do is I'll go up to Omaha at the Funny Bone up in Omaha, where I've been forever. And I will take, sometimes I'll do a guest set, but I got to tell you, sometimes I hate doing a guest set because I don't want to just do 7 minutes, 10 minutes. And I also don't want to go up in front of the other person. So generally what I'll do is I'll call up and I'll say, hey, listen, can I have a Monday and a Tuesday night? Well, go ahead and promote it and pick a charity and we'll give the money to charity, but I just need a couple of nights to work on material. So I'll do that. A lot of times, since it's one-liners, I'll throw in 7 or 8 brand new one-liners a night when I'm doing a show somewhere, and I'll mark down where it worked and where it didn't. But I have stacks and stacks of jokes throughout the years that I always go through. What didn't work 10 years ago might work today. You know how that works, Adam. You know, you'll have a joke and you'll love the joke, but you just can't get it to work, you know? And so I'll try to find, it's almost like a baseball lineup. This guy's hitting second, but he just sucking. So I'll move him down to the 9th spot. All of a sudden he comes to life. And there's no, I think Seinfeld talked about, there's no way to really explain why a joke works in a certain position. It just does. I remember Jerry saying one time, he noticed when he was doing jokes, he would gesture with his right hand when he did a punchline, a certain punchline.
Mm-hmm.
One day he just did it with the other hand, and he goes, for some odd reason, it didn't get half the laugh as it did when I did it with the right hand. He goes, I have no idea why. Maybe I delivered it different with it. And that's true. So I have a whole thing of jokes, and you know, early on, you know, it's just you, and you don't have an agent, and before you get your big break, it takes years to develop your act. Then you put out your first album. Next thing you know, you sign a record deal, and you got to do 3 albums in 2 years. So that's when I hired 3 guys that think like me and write like me. And I had 3 guys on staff that helped me with my movies and specials, you know, my Christmas specials. And they were throwing out one-liners. They would throw me half-written ones. I'd throw them half-written ones. And so I did that for a long time. So, you know, I had some help. I mean, it's impossible for you to do 3 albums in 2 years all by yourself, especially when you're doing. So I have just hundreds of jokes, and that's pretty much what I do. I call it kind of like a minor league system. I have my major league right here, and then I have my triple A, and I have my single A, and this guy needs a little work. He gets sent down to be tweaked on, and so that's pretty much how I do it. You know, I just find the slot and line up and let them go to town and see if it can get a laugh. You know, I want to do this joke about I'm not a very good investor in the stock market, and like an idiot, a few years ago I lost a bunch of money. I invested in Princess Diane antenna balls, and it just made me. And I'm like, make that, and I used to do that joke, and it would never get a laugh. And then one day I just went out and said, you know what, I'm going to do that like one of my first 5 jokes, and I did it, and it killed. So I don't know why it worked in the beginning. It never worked anywhere else in the act, but up front and early.
Yeah, it's an interesting process, which is there are things you think are funny and things that you really think are funny, and you think they're funny long before the audience thinks they're funny.
Oh, so yeah. A lot of times the punchline comes first.
Right.
You get a funny phrase. Oh man, I got to write a setup for this. This is hilarious.
Right. So now you have you're in a weird position, which is something you think is really funny, but it doesn't get the kind of reaction you think it deserves. How often do you bring that up in front of the audience? Because you know the reaction's not good, but if you stay with it, at some point, initial impulse works. Yes.
Initially, it is. I think I can't even remember what the joke was, but I remember several times I would do a joke and I would go, all right, that's like the 15th time I've used that joke, but one of these days that joke is going to kill, right? I'm going to come here and you're going to laugh your ass off at that joke. I've done that before. A lot of times when I'll do a joke like that, and I just do it for myself. I know it's not going to get that big of a laugh. I'll do it for myself. And then I can do the callback, the joke, the savor after. It's always gets the bigger laugh. Like I'll do the joke, and then I'll go, "Don't worry, I saved the receipt for that."
Right.
You know, something dumb.
Yeah, no, it's people are so it's funny. They're so interested in organic that it's the sidebar stuff you say sometimes it gets the bigger reaction because they feel
Oh,
like that's real time, you know?
yeah, definitely. And that's the cool thing about the style of comedy I do, the one-liner style. You can do all those old stupid saves, and you know you'll catch that on the way home, or
Right.
don't applaud too loud. This building's old. You know, just stupid
Right.
stuff.
Is
I,
so
since I was a kid, I've always loved that stuff. You know, when I was growing up, the Dean Martin roasts I loved Hee Haw, Monty Python's Flying Circus. I loved early Steve Martin. I loved Howie Mandel when he was young and make me laugh. He always
right.
did. Like, you know, I like that goofy stuff. And you know, I always remembered Steve Martin when I got his book. I loved his book, and they always asked him why he did such goofy humor when everybody else was doing this other kind of stuff. He said, you know what? He goes, I thought people were just sick of politics and everybody was doing politics. I figured I would go the complete opposite direction and be completely goofy. And, you know, it was awesome. And the world needed it too at that time.
Well, it's also interesting if I think about Steve Martin. Steve Martin, there's some comedians that get up there and they just kind of bare their soul, you know, and sometimes it gets a little preachy, to be honest, but they get up there and they just kind of bare their soul. And then there are other guys like Steve Martin, who's probably an intensely private guy.
Yeah.
So he doesn't want to get up there and talk about his addictions and his failed marriages and what he's talking about in therapy right now, you know? So
people got enough problems without hearing about yours.
I kind of agree. I like funny comedians, and I like everyone likes funny comedians. I'm stupid, but what I'm saying is I like joke people. I like stories. I like a mixture. I like sort of all of the above.
Yeah.
But I don't like the ones who just come up there and sort of dump on you about how neurotic they are, how bad their relationships are, how insecure they are.
Or if you're not laughing at the joke, it's not my fault. You're a bunch of idiots.
Right. Yeah. You're not feeling their pain.
I'm the same way. Look, comedy is hard, and it doesn't matter if I like them or not. If you've developed an audience and you're out there as a stand-up comic, more power to you, because comedy is a hard business. But I'm with you. I like jokes. I just want to laugh. I like jokes. You know, I think I made a mistake early on. My character, when I initially did my character, I never thought I would do it on stage. It was all theater of the mind for radio, you know, and it was this redneck Archie Bunker type character that I developed, but I wanted it to be likable because I want to be liked. I'm a nice person. And on the radio, I think it came across that way to a lot of people, because I remember getting a comment one time. Somebody said, "Man, Larry, we love your comedy, blah, blah, blah." This one, it was just radio. And said, "You know what, but you're not mean, you're likable." You know, and I like that. But when I first started, you know, I didn't really, when I started bringing it to the stage, I had to take my act that I was doing and convert it into the character. So half of it, some of it was political, and most of it wasn't, but some of it was. I think it kind of rubbed some people the wrong way. And now that I'm older and I have kids, and, you know, people get just thrown at them 24 hours a day, this politics. And I didn't want to do that kind of stuff anymore. So I just want people to laugh and enjoy themselves, especially nowadays. That's what we need. So with this special, I made sure I didn't put anything like that in there, because people have had enough of it. And besides that, who am I? You know, I'm just a comedian. I'm no smarter than the next guy. I got my beliefs and my thoughts, but, you know, I just want to make people laugh.
You know, it is funny, and I probably brought it up last time I saw you, but, you know, or we spoke, but you and I got our start the exact same way. I had a blue-collar comedian, Archie Bunker. I was doing a blue-collar Archie Bunker character on a morning radio show that then led to much bigger things, but it was the same guy. It was he was anti PC, Archie Bunker. He was, you know, not Larry the Cable Guy. He was Mr. Burcham, the woodshop teacher.
Yeah.
But it was the same thing.
And didn't Jimmy start that way too? I think he did characters in Tampa on the station that I was on, doing the same thing, doing characters on a radio station.
Well, when I know he was on in Tampa, I know he was on in Seattle, I know he was on in, I think, Phoenix, I know he was on in Palm Springs. He bounced around a lot. You know, when I met Jimmy, he was 26 and a half, and he'd been bounced around to 5 different radio stations already at the age of 26. So, and I knew he was in Tampa. And when I met him, he was doing Jimmy the sports guy, and not Larry the Cable Guy. But when I met him, he was doing Jimmy the sports guy at K-Rock. I ended up doing Mr. Burcham, the woodshop teacher, probably somewhere around a little bit after you were doing Larry the Cable Guy. So these stories aren't dissimilar at all.
We all got started doing characters on radio. I mean, that's how it happens, you know. You don't really plan what happens, but that's what happened.
And it was funny that my guy was also described as the Archie Bunker type. And the thing was, the key to the success is it had to be self-deprecating.
Yes.
Whatever went wrong, it had to go wrong with you.
Right.
So it was you. So it was you. You start off, you think you're making fun of your wife, but the joke's on you.
Right.
You think you're making fun of your Jewish neighbor, but the joke's on you. You know, you think you're making fun of this group or that politician, but the joke is always on you.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I did. Same thing. Yep. No doubt.
And, you know, it's funny when people would ask me about the Man Show and why it was so successful, I'd always tell them the joke was always on me and Jimmy. We always lost. We never got the girl. We never won the game. It was always, we were the butt of the joke.
Right.
If it was us winning, it wouldn't be funny.
Do you think you could ever do the Man Show now again?
I do not think so. I do not.
I mean, that's the thing that stinks. It's funny. It was harmless. It was hilarious. I got to tell you, man, it's such a crazy time we're living in. You know, I answer these interview questions all the time. Has anything changed for me in stand-up? Well, my crowd's awesome, so my crowd doesn't care what I do. But I've always found it a little strange that people don't like what a comedian says, and they get offended at a comedy club, and then they try to get the comedian banned from ever working again. I always find that to be insane. Back in the day, and you know, Adam, you didn't like a joke a comedian did. You just never bought his albums, and you never went to see him at the show. You didn't raise a big stink that he should not perform anymore.
Well, you know, it's first off, I never thought it was within my rights to boycott anyone or not. It was not within my right to tell somebody else that they couldn't perform or they shouldn't perform or you shouldn't buy tickets or the club owner shouldn't let them perform. It wasn't my right. If I saw a TV show and I disagreed with something, then I could change the channel. I would never write an article or write a letter to the editor, or write a letter to the programmer. I never thought, I was never imbibed with any power over anyone else's creativity. I could just leave the room if I didn't like what music was being played.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I just don't get it, you know, like, for instance, in Canada, you know, those 2 comics that got fined. What was it? One comic got fined $75,000, another one $25,000 or something, because somebody was offended about a joke that they did. I mean, that's just nuts.
It is nuts. And one of the biggest problems I think is it's not even being canceled. It's comedians and creators and speakers and free thinkers and artists pausing and thinking, how's this going to sound? Or how's this going to be interpreted?
Yeah.
What would this sound like? So now the most insidious part of all is self-editing. You're thinking, what's this going to sound like? And then you're thinking to yourself, oh, this is just a joke. I'm not making a joke. And then you think, but how's this going to be perceived? The second you start thinking, how's this going to be perceived? That's trouble for a comedian.
No, you're exactly right. There's so many funny jokes that you want to send out on Twitter, but you don't want the hassle from people that are just insane about it. You know, I mean, it is really crazy when you think of something very funny but before you send it, you have to think, okay, who is not going to like this joke? I mean, it's just ridiculous. Like I sent one out the other day and I was hesitant about it. Then I'm thinking, why am I hesitant about this? So I sent it out and it was, I was up at Walmart and there was a black lady working at the counter and I went up to her and I said, excuse me, where's the saltines? And she said, Larry, this place is full of crackers.
Right.
You know?
That's funny. And it's about you, and it's not about you putting her down, but
No,
it does.
But the problem is with some people, they will go, he said black lady. Oh!
Right. Larry, this time, your timing could not be better. And I'll tease it, but I literally sent out a tweet about a black person as a joke 2 hours ago. And I sat there and I thought about it for a while before I hit send. And I will tell you the joke and it'll make perfect sense. And you'll see that we're both simpatico, that we had to stop and think, how was this going to be perceived? First, I'll tell you about NetSuite by Oracle. Companies like Ring, Hint, Tecovas. If you got some boots and you want some boots, Tecovas is good. What they have in common, they've all accelerated their growth with NetSuite. If you want to take your company from 2 million to 10 million or from 10 million to hundreds of millions in revenue, NetSuite by Oracle gives you the tools to turbocharge your growth. Get a full picture of your business, finance, inventory, HR, customers, and more. You run your entire business from anywhere, even if you're working from your house. NetSuite, and a lot of people are working from their house these days. NetSuite customers grow faster than the S&P 500, world's #1 cloud-based business system, trusted by 20,000 plus companies. It is NetSuite. Business grows here, right, Dawson?
Schedule your free product tour right now and get your free guide, 6 ways to run a more profitable business at netsuite.com/Adam. That's netsuite.com/Adam. netsuite.com/Adam.
You know,
yeah.
What's funny, you said that. I thought you were reading me your tweet, and I'm thinking, holy man, long tweet.
This is a long ass tweet. Yeah, I saw you react. I was like, what's so funny? No, I was teasing it. Sorry. I've been watching the news, and and I know. And when the Surgeon General comes on, he's appears to be a 39 or 40-year-old black man with a shaved head. And I was looking at it and I go, that looks like the NBA's Vince Carter. He looks like perennial all-star Vince Carter. And I've been thinking that for a number of days, just looking at it, going, every time I see a picture of the guy, and Chris, you could find a picture of Vince Carter. The guy looks like Vince Carter.
Exactly.
The guy I'd say he looks almost exactly like Vince Carter, right? So I'm looking at it, I go, that guy looks like Vince Carter. So I get up today and I see a tweet, and it's a Stephen King tweet that James Woods has done a little work on, and we'll look at the tweet, and I look at it, and it's Stephen King saying, note, Trump's coronavirus team is all male, all old, and all white. And sorry. And then I take it and I write my tweet, which is, he appointed Vince Carter Surgeon General. That's got to count for something. Now,
first of all, that's hilarious. And second of all, is Stephen, what kind of drug is he on?
I don't know. So,
I mean, you can't write this comedy. That's unbelievable that he would write that.
It's sad that Stephen King is funnier than both of us combined, but
and not even meaning to be.
Right. So I'm thinking, okay, the Surgeon General looks like Vince Carter, and I've been thinking about this for a few days now, but now I want to write this joke, but now people are going to think it's a racist comment, but it's really just a joke about the Surgeon General looking like Vince Carter. And I have no idea what people's response is on it, but it's exact same thing, which is you're making a joke, I'm making a joke. We shouldn't even hesitate before we hit send, but now we do.
Yeah, it's a sad commentary, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that joke. It's hilarious because he looks like Vince Carter. Some people just, I don't think they're happy unless they're coming down on somebody else because their lives are so pathetic. They have nothing to do but be mad at somebody for something stupid like that. I mean, I honestly don't get it.
I don't get it. It feels like the worst use of calories ever. You know what I mean? Like when people say, you want to burn calories binge watching this mindless TV show or eating chips that are baked and filled with Olestra or whatever it is, burning calories, taking out people from 3,000 miles away you've never met, especially when there's a context. There's jokes. These people are making jokes. Seems like the worst use of their time. Forget about our time. What about their time?
Yeah, don't ask me. Anytime I wrote a joke that I thought it was going to be controversial, I gave it to Lisa Lampanelli and let her do it.
Well, where do you live now?
I live in Nebraska. I got my wife, I got a little boy, 13, my little girl's 12. And so we're in Nebraska and, we're not we have the regular, separate no more than 10 people, but we don't really have a lot of cases here. So, they let us get out if you want to go for walks and stuff like that. Just make sure you're not close to somebody else. And so that's where I'm at. I'm in Nebraska.
You grew up in Nebraska, right? And then you moved to Florida. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I did. I grew up in a small town, southeast Nebraska, and then I moved to Florida when I was 15.
Why Florida at 15?
My dad did all kinds of stuff. My dad was a preacher. On the weekends, he had a rhythm and blues country band called the Memphis Beats. We had a farm, so he'd work on the farm on Saturdays. He was a guidance counselor on weekdays at a public school. And he got a job at the 5th largest Christian school in Florida. So he moved us all down to Florida. That's one thing people always go, the Larry the Cable Guy is acting like he grew up all country and he went to a private school. First of all, I went for free because my dad was the principal and I got kicked out after 2 years. And I went to another one and I still haven't got my diploma because I couldn't afford to pay tuition, so I didn't get my diploma.
What is it you want to do that you haven't done? I mean, you made movies, written books and albums and stand-up. Is there something, like for me personally, I started making documentaries a few years ago, slightly more serious. What's that?
By the way, not to interrupt you, they are awesome. I love your one about the schools. They're really good. You guys do such a good job on those.
Yeah, I did No Safe Spaces with Dennis Prager. I've done a bunch of car-related ones. I've done different docs, and it's a departure from what I normally do, and I enjoy it. Right. Is there something that you're thinking about that might be a departure from what we know you for that you'd like to do career-wise or outside of career?
All I've ever wanted to do is dance. And I want to be a clogging instructor. Is that on? Adam, I'll be honest. I can't think of anything. I've been so blessed. I never thought, as far as my career goes, I would have this much success as the career goes. I mean, the movies, and I didn't even ask for those. They came to me and approached me with those, and it's like, hey, you want to do a movie? Yeah, sure. Here's the script. I don't need to read it. Right. So, I mean, everything, I honestly can't think of anything else that I would rather do. I think what I want to do now is I just want to be a good dad for my kids. I just want to be a good dad. I want to make sure that I raise a couple of good citizens and I just want to, when they go off and do their thing, you know, I love my wife to death. She's my best friend, and just maybe do a little traveling with her. And I love golf. You know, if I could have any dream in the world, it'd be that I'd wake up one day and I'd be a +3 handicap so I could play better golf. So, I mean, I love that, but I'll be honest, I'm really happy with everything. And there's nothing really that I can think of that I'd like to do.
Let me float this idea. You brought up golf, and I used to play a little bit. I understand that feeling, and it attracts successful people. And everyone thinks, well, because you got to be rich to play golf. I don't think it's that. So many celebrities want to play golf. They want to play these pro-am games. They want to whatever. Is it a pursuit, a constant pursuit of betterment? Like, is that what golf does? Like, you just want to shave 2 strokes off the back 9. You just want to do it. And it attracts the kind of people who are in showbiz who want to keep getting better, right?
Adam, it challenges you. You've already, like most of these celebrities that play, they've already reached the pinnacle of their careers. These athletes that are in the Hall of Fame, they've done this. Golf is a way for you to challenge yourself at something else. And every day you're challenging yourself to get better. And not only that, you get out and it's fresh air and you walk and you get good exercise and you meet awesome people, and you don't have to be rich to play golf. You can just go down to the there's a course down the road you can get on for $7. You know, right. I mean, I used to hate golf. And then I got into it, and I said, man, this is a lot of fun. And it really does. It challenges you to do better. I mean, when like you said, a lot of celebrities and athletes, they work hard and they try every time they're on stage. They want to be better that night than they were the night before. And that's what golf does. It challenges you. It's constantly challenging you to get better. And I love it. And I'm the only guy in golf that has appeared on the Golf Channel and Court TV on the same day.
All right, let me hit another spot here. I'm not reading a tweet here, so do not be confused. I'm talking about Tommy John. For the next few weeks, or God forbid months, we're all going to spend a little bit of time at home. Let's be comfortable with Tommy John Loungewear by Tommy John. For a limited time, all customers get 20% off site-wise, plus free shipping. Softest, most breathable, proprietary fabrics performed like nothing you've ever worn before. No roll waistbands, no wedgie guarantee, no visible panty lines for the women. Quick draw fly for the fellas. This stuff is the best. The loungewear is the best. It's so comfortable. The underwear is the best. I wear the loungewear all around. I finally had to wash the stuff. I'd worn it like 17 days in a row. Finally put it in the hamper, but this stuff is the best. And if you don't love your first pair, they got a guarantee. You can get a free refund and a full refund, but you will not need it because it's the best. Right, Gary?
It's Dawson, and I can't find the outro. I'll do it in post.
Sorry. All right. Larry, yes.
By the way, you just did the Tom. That's one of the jokes that I used to never get to work, but I did it because I thought it was funny. It was... I knew a guy who was a baseball player. He had Tommy Chong surgery, and all he would do was sit in the dugout by himself, saying, "Dave's not here." It's the dumbest joke ever. I liked it. I kept it.
That is a good joke, but you got to know the bit. And I don't know. I'm trying to think of your audience and what percentage of them know that famous Tommy Chong. Cheech and Chong bit. Now they know comedy and they probably like comedy albums, and it's pretty ubiquitous.
Well, you figure anybody 40 and up would know who it is.
They should know. Yeah. Or maybe Doug Benson's audience would know just a little bit better. It's a pot reference there. The stand-up special, super funny. Remain seated. Lots of jokes, all funny, all new, and over an hour. I think an hour and 7 minutes and change, if I recall. All funny and all entertaining. And Thanks. You can get it. Yeah, it's really funny. And it's available now on demand, Amazon, YouTube, Apple TV, Google Play as well. And the website, Larry the Cable Guy. Carolla.com. Hey, good talking to you again, my friend.
Yeah. Hey, Adam, you too. I appreciate you so much. And man, you do such a good job on those documentaries. Keep it up, man. There's a lot of people think like you, so keep it up.
Thanks, Larry. And let's see. Oh, yeah, plug. Sorry. You can go to AdamCarolla.com. You can go to NoSafeSpaces.com and watch No Safe Spaces. You can go to Netflix and watch all the racing docs I got there. You can go to Chassis, CHASSY.com, and get all the docs on Blu-ray. Yeah.
That's right. You're into cars. For Valentine's Day 2 years ago, I bought my wife the Steve McQueen Bullitt car.
Really?
Yeah, not the car, but the replica.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That, by the way, that Mustang is a beautiful Mustang.
It's awesome. It's dark green with a black stripe down it. It's nice.
And it works. I've driven that car. Like, it is a nice ride, and it looks good too.
It's a ton of looks. I know that. A ton of thumbs up.
And I'll tell you, it does. I don't know if you got her a stick or an automatic. I'm guessing you got her an automatic.
Yeah, she wanted an automatic.
Well, that's good, because it's good. It means she has a car to drive, and it means she's under the age of 40. So that's all good news for you. You don't want a 6-year-old who can handle 3 on the tree.
Well, I got me a young one. Matter of fact, when she first told me her age, I almost choked on my pizza and dropped my game tokens.
All right, so go to AdamCarolla.com, find out what I'm doing over there, and pre-order my book. I'm your emotional support animal. And until next time, this is Adam Carolla for Gina Grad and Paul Bryan and Larry the Cable Guy saying mahalo.